Tesla in China has been quite under pressure, but I mentioned that I think that this is kind of a buying opportunity on the technicals of the chart and that I'm not worried so much about the fundamentals of Tesla in China. And now I have also the feeling that kind of the sentiment around Tesla is again shifting to the positive, and this has to do with a couple of news that actually also might be related towards NIO, because Tesla has launched a new Model Y in China with a lower range, but that is extremely nice priced. So this could be a turnaround. In this video I discuss what it means for Tesla, but also if this is possibly a problem for NIO as well. Let us first take a look at Tesla China sales. And here you can see the first quarter versus the second quarter. And if you look at the total sales, so these are the domestic sales in China split between Model 3 and Model Y, you can see that the Q1 they sold almost 70,000 cars, but in Q2 it's down to almost 62,000. So although I'm a Tesla shareholder and I'm bullish on Tesla, I have to say, yes, there is an issue with the domestic sales in China. They're not going, like rising and in this exponential growth trajectory. But there are reasons for that, as I can point out now. So here you can also see an additional line, which are the exports. So in Q1, Tesla has only exported around 10,000 cars. But this number really ramps up in Q2 to almost 30,000 cars that are being exported. So in total, that's also why you see actually that a Q1 to Q number growth from 78,000 cars to 92,000 cars that are actually coming from Tesla Giga Shanghai. So this is the shift that I mentioned before of Tesla focusing here on exporting cars from Giga Shanghai because they have a higher quality actually than the cars that are producing in Fremont, and they are particularly liked in Europe as well. And that's why we see actually a quarter-over-quarter growth in the China produced cars, although the domestic sales are down a little bit. So this is where the big news about Model Y in China, an update to that, is really exciting to tell here because they released this Baojun, so the standard range Model Y, which has the lowest range which they're offering, but it's now coming down to a price of 276,000 renminbi. And this is really a bargain, I would say, for a car that can go 525 kilometers on one charge, up to 217 kilometers per hour, and goes to 105.6 seconds. So this is an incredible deal, like just on the performance and the specs and the price there. But additionally, this means that Tesla with this model is below the 300,000 RMB threshold that applies for the subsidies by the Chinese government for EV vehicle sales. So in addition to that, now this model, for each of the buyers of this model, the customers will actually also receive and be eligible for also netting an additional subsidy here for their EVs. And I've updated my chart about the price ranges in China, including different manufacturers. So on the right hand side you can see the NIO ES6, the EC6 and ES8 all start around roughly $40,000 converted. I haven't entirely updated all of the specs here. There might be some other changes already, but the significant change here is the Model Y China SR, which now, like this red bar here, this indicates how big this price cut kind of has been with the introduction of this lower priced model, because now it's almost closing the gap here with the competition here in terms of the NIO ES6 and the EC6, which also start at this range, if customers are actually buying it with the battery as a service model. So the threshold is roughly here around $43,000 converted. And so yes, the NIO models, they always applied for it because of course they also have the battery swapping technology, which is an exemption in the subsidy model. But now also the Model Y is actually exempt for the standard range model at least. And from what I'm hearing from China, it's really selling like freshly cooked xiaolongbao. And this means like, well, Chinese really love these kind of incentives like the government subsidies and bringing out a bargain or a car at this price level is really a huge deal in the perception of Chinese users. So I have actually no doubts that this will actually push also the domestic sales of the Model Ys even further. They just started ramping it actually, but with this introduction, I think we will not only see maybe a growth in the exports like I've shown before, but in the future also again a growth in the domestic numbers of the Chinese models being sold of Tesla. Now I'm coming to what this means for NIO in a second, but there's actually also another news which is significant why I see the sentiment shifting, because Tesla is actually now going out there and suing those users that are saying or accusing actually Tesla that they had a braking failure here with their cars that they bought. And there are now the first pictures floating around the Chinese internet of people who have received like kind of the lawsuit and so on. I think this will kind of mark a turnaround in not only the perception, because Tesla is now going after it, but also now with this new deal and Tesla kind of really working on the PR side there. This should all have positive implications for Tesla in China. Now, of course, I'm also a NIO investor, and now for NIO it would be critical whether or not the Model Y standard range will actually steal some sales from some of the lower priced NIO models here. And I have to say, frankly, yes, this might be the case. I'm pretty sure that this is such an attractive offering and price that some of the NIO users may consider switching and buying a Model Y here, the standard range. But I think this will be just a tiny amount. I think there are two more different effects. The first effect is that this, it makes so much news about how good this price is, and that it's actually really good for electric cars in general, because more of the ICE car owners or prospective buyers will actually consider getting an EV. And then this will actually at the same time result in more people getting to know NIO and also looking at their offerings. And then once again, I'm actually pretty happy about this move by Tesla, because for me, as I always mention, Tesla is kind of getting to be this new Volkswagen of China or in the world of EVs, because they will be capturing most of this mass market segment and grow in that segment, and you will see more and more price reductions as the technology cost is coming down. But NIO is more focused actually on this really almost luxury branding, as well as those high net worth clients and consumer base, which is much more important for their other offerings in the area of e-commerce, NIO Life and so on. And so for NIO, I just think the car buyers are quite different. As I've shown before on this chart, NIO car prices are driving premiumization in China. They are as high as Mercedes-Benz on the average sales prices, much higher than Tesla's. And I think this trend will just continue here. And so it makes those companies move in different directions in one way. Tesla will be selling many more cars, scaling faster, possibly selling more cars on absolute terms. But NIO, they will grow much more into the legacy brands, into Audi, into BMW, into Mercedes, into their customers, and sell at those higher prices, and thereby possibly will actually grow the revenue pool in comparison to some of the other competitors, but on a lower absolute scale. Although, still with the prospects of at one point, selling more than 1 million cars, obviously, as it seems to be planned out with the factory layout and so on. But yet still, the focus is so much more on these higher price ranges that I do think that this Model Y offering by Tesla is not really the competition for NIO there. And so I think it will have, some impacts of some people which possibly may have bought one of the low tier model with the lowest customization and just a BAS scheme. But as we see on average, the NIO sales are much higher priced, and I think that will stay like this. So let me know in the comments what you think about the prospects of Tesla in China, and also what do you think how this may impact NIO. Are you worried about this, or do you also see those growth drivers that I just outlined and that the companies are becoming actually quite different in the end? I'm interested to hear your opinion, and then thank you guys for watching and see you in the next one.